Do you think the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good?
That's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you?
Oh yeah, I had a direct experience with it.
In the milieu of journalism, or just...
Nope, in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed, and mauled. Physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon. Or by something unseen that left...
Is that right?
Claw marks on my sides, on my...
So he left physical marks?
Oh, they're still there. Yeah. A year and a half ago.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I wasn't. I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe, and I thought I was going to suffocate, and I walked around outside, and then I walked in, and my wife and dogs had not woken up, and they're very light sleepers. And then I had these terrible pains on my rib cage and on my shoulder, and I was just in my boxer shorts, and I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder. And they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks. And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. But yeah, that happened. So I'm not from a world where things like that happen. I never heard of anything like that happening before. I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did? Okay, that was going to be my question.
Yeah. I don't understand to this day. I'm not going to put it...
You didn't try to refute the spiritual part in your own mind. You went right into the...
Well, it didn't make any sense, and it doesn't now. But I'm not from a, what do they call it, faith tradition that talks about things like that or even acknowledges their existence. Like, there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
What was the next day like?
Well, the next morning I woke up and I thought, that was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And then I saw blood on my sheets, and I realized that was not a dream at all. I called my assistant, who was like the only evangelical Christian I know, well enough to call with something bizarre like that, totally bizarre like that. And she said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed by demons. What? What are you even talking about? Yeah. So, I'm not leaving anything out, and I'm not pretending to understand that. I can only say what happened to me, and that did happen to me. And then I was seized with this very intense desire to read the Bible, which I then started without any study aids or anything. I bought a Bible that didn't have any. I'm not interested in editorializing in the Bible. I just want to read it and see what's in there myself. I have very low levels of trust for Christian pastors, most of whom, I'm just not a fan at all. And sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. And so I don't want to hear other people's opinions. I just want to see what's in there. And so I spent a year and a half reading it, and then I started rereading it. And it was just a transformative experience for me, but I'm not holding myself out as someone from whom you could get theological advice, because I'm not. Of course. I don't know. I don't understand any of it. But yeah, that happened.
God allowed the demon?
I have no idea what happened. All I know is I was dead asleep with my wife and dogs, and I woke up with claw marks on my rib cage underneath my arms, and it didn't even make sense. My arms would, anyway, whatever. No one has to believe me. I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
But that happened to me, and so I just was like, wow, that's real. Whatever that is, I'm not sure what it is.
It's very real. And so then that presence of that evil launches something.
Most of us are aware of demonic possession, which are a result of overhyped, sensationalized movies. But there are other categories that exorcists tell us about regarding demonic attack, and we're going to discuss those in a minute. And Tucker's experience definitely falls into one of these categories. So there were a few questions that were asked during the course of the interview that were never answered, and one was regarding the evil that, if manifested, does that lead you to pursue a good? And I think that the answer there is yes. So, one, we see evil more and more on display in our world, and it's as if in recent years that evil cannot hide. We're seeing it again and again in the public square, often in sensational news regarding matters such as the Epstein scandal, what's going on currently with Diddy. But much more than that, we see it also in our culture that's widespread, and we see it in government laws as well. And we see it definitely manifested in the outbreak of wars, which have their source in evil machinations by governments, often dragging an unwilling populace into war. And if the evil was fully disclosed, I think it would be so severe that most would not believe it. But going back to the question, so the question was, does it make you pursue a good? In other words, understanding the reality of evil. And also, in this case of Tucker's, a supernatural evil. So the answer there is yes. And we've seen that in our saints. We've seen that in Marian apparitions. A good example is in Fatima, where our Blessed Mother showed the young children at Fatima the realities of hell, a vision of hell. And it's not meant to scare the children, but it's meant as a message for us all that there is a reality of hell. There is a reality of a supernatural demonic force. And once you understand that that exists, then you also must understand that heaven exists, that there is a judgment if there is a hell and a heaven. And if there is a judgment, then there is sin. And if there is sin, then we must listen to the words of Jesus and repent and live a good life. So going to what exorcists describe when they talk about demonic attacks, the first one, the lowest level, is demonic oppression. And oppression is demonic attack from the outside. So it would be things like, a good example would be you have a series of, they seem to be highly coincidental problems in your life. And the problems could be you have a car that breaks down, even though it's well maintained. You have also other equipment that breaks down around the same time, even though they are relatively new and well maintained. You have things like a series of misfortunes. You lose your job and so forth. You have difficulties, say, at work or with your family. That's a form of oppression, and it can have a demonic source. The more severe one is demonic obsession, and that's the category that Tucker's incidents fall into. And these are usually, they're more emotional, or I hate to use the term, but psychic attacks. It's an attack upon your psyche, but it could also be a physical one like Tucker experienced. And of course, the worst case is demonic possession, where through the permissive will of God, a demon is permitted to have rights over one's body, but not their soul, their body only. And of course, this is the one that we're most familiar with, although we probably don't have good representation from Hollywood. This is one that I think that most would understand. So why does this happen? Why does God allow this to occur? It's not that he wills it, but he permits it to occur. Permits it to occur for what I just mentioned regarding the idea that if hell is recognized, then you also must recognize that there is a heaven, and you must recognize that there is a good, and you must conform your life and amend your life. The saints also have experienced this demonic influence and reality quite often. A good example would be St. John Vianney, a saint from France, and he was well known to have these conflicts with the demonic. They would attack him at night. He actually had a name in French for the devil, which would translate into the grabber, because this devil would bother him at night, grab him, tug on him, and so forth. And this is witnessed by others who were in the same church and resided with him. In one case, and it was very similar to an experience that Padre Pio had as well. In one case, I heard this tremendous noise coming from the bedroom at night. When they went to his bedroom, they found St. John Vianney was pulled from his bed, and his bed was on fire. And this happened, as I mentioned, to Padre Pio as well. They had other monks run to his quarters, and they tried to open a door which would not open, and they heard a tremendous tumult coming from his bedroom. And when they finally opened the door, they found Padre Pio beaten, bloodied, and very battered by the devil. And this is allowed because the reality of good and evil is something that our modern society has ignored. And Tucker mentioned it in this clip. He said that it's something that they wouldn't talk about, they wouldn't even think about. He had no experience of it. Well, he has experience of it now. And why, Tucker? Perhaps because he needed it himself, and perhaps because he's a vehicle to communicate this experience to others, as he just did. Well, I want to thank you for joining, and God bless.